Okay, thanks everyone. Once again, my name is Dan Yeaw. I work at Ford Motor Company and I do functional safety. So I help design safety into vehicles. I'm going to be giving a lightning talk on what's new in Python 3.12. And the gist of this is things like friendly exceptions, Fstring enhancements, and less setup tools. So first of all, Python 3.12 is almost out. So today, right now, you can download beta 3 of 3.12, and the first release candidate will be out later in July. And the target date for the final release is in the beginning of October, October 2nd. You can go to python.org/download and go to other versions, and you can download the beta now. It's ready to be used, and it's a lot of fun to play with, so I highly recommend it. So first thing I want to talk about is improved error messages. So right now, often you accidentally make a typo and it tells you that there's some type of error, like, hey, there's an import error or a syntax error or something. And one of the enhancements is it started to give a lot more suggestions on how to fix the error itself. So it will, if you have an import error, for example, and you forgot, or a name error, you forgot to write an import statement, it will say, hey, you forgot to import this. Did you mean to import it? Or, hey, you have this import error. Did you mean this word instead? So that will really help out everyone writing Python, especially new people that get some like scary error and don't really know what to do about it, right? So I think that's a really nice addition. There's also a lot of improvements to Fstrings. I love Fstrings. It's a really great way to write out a string in Python and then inject some variable or code in there. And they made a bunch of improvements to it to make it even better. So you can nest Fstrings inside other Fstrings now, which is totally bonkers. And I think it'll be very handy. You can also use quotes inside the Fstring statement itself. So inside the curly brackets, you can use quotes now. And it allows all kinds of like special characters. You can have comments in the middle of your expression, like all kinds of stuff. So it's really nice improvements, and I'll show that in a second. And then the final like big thing that I think will impact a lot of people is they remove distutils, which has been deprecated for a few years now. But setup tools was bundled distutils. So that's not as big of a change, but they actually remove setup tools from the standard environment that you create, like with a virtual environment. So if you're using a setup.py in your packages, you actually need to start declaring setup tools as a dependency of your package. There's other things, of course, you can use, like the pyproject.toml, and you can use poetry or one of the other libraries instead of setup tools. But if you want to use setup tools, you need to start declaring it. So I think that was kind of like, will be surprising a little bit to some people. So I wanted to call that out. There was a lot of other changes in 3.12. I'm just kind of talking about maybe the highest level things. So I wanted to share a couple of those. And let me show a few of those things like in action real quick. So this is just a terminal. So I'm going to put up Python 3.11 on the left and Python 3.12 on the right. And let me zoom way into both of these. So if you were trying to do something in Python 3.11, like, hey, I'm using math operations, right? So and you call math.py, you're going to get a name error. It says math is not defined. And maybe if you're new to Python or you didn't remember that you forgot to import it, this isn't that great of an error to know what to do about it. It just says math is not defined. Okay, but how do I define it, right? So in Python 3.12 on the right, so you can do the same thing, right? And it'll say is not defined, and then it adds a little bit of extra, which I think is really nice. So it says, did you forget to import math? It's giving you like a hint of like, oh, I forgot to import it, rather than just like an error itself, right? You can also do things in 3.12, like if you misspell things, it's helpful. So you could do math. Oh, I have to import math now. and then math.py, it will say like math has no attribute pi. Did you mean pi instead? Or if you try to call, same thing. If you make a typo, it's going to try to help out with that. And it also does that with if you're using like class methods. If you make a class and try to call, it forgot to put the self when you're calling the method or the attribute, it will say, hey, did you forget to call self? So stuff like that is like really nice. So that was one of the new things. The other thing I mentioned was F strings. So if we're creating an F string, now we said, hey, you can either make them nested or you can put quotes inside of the expression itself. So if we say like presenters today, and we can, I guess we have like Chae, Dan, Evan, and Mike. So like we create a list of presenters, right? Now we can use like F strings on this. So you could say like the presenters are, and then we can put an F string and put quotes inside the F string, and then do a join and put in our presenters. Hopefully I got the syntax correct. Oh, I messed it up somehow. Anyone see my error? Presenters are. Oh, so this is expected, right? So this is on Python 3.11. It's telling me there's a syntax error. So it did exactly what we'd expect. So if we copy this and put it in Python 3.12 and put presenters in here, it says the presenters are Chae, Dan, Evan, and Mike. So you can see the difference here. Python 3.11, it gave us a syntax error actually, right? It said like you can't put quotes inside of a F string statement like that. And so, but in Python 3.12, you can definitely do that. Notice you don't even have to change the quote type. It says, okay, here's this F string, and I'm going to put quotes inside and resolve the structure of it. You can also do things like put F strings inside F strings. So we could have an F string, and inside that F string is another F string, and like inside of that we could add some numbers or something, and you could nest this as like as much as you want as well.
You're breaking my brain.
Yeah. I don't I could see it being useful for some things. This is just a silly example. You wouldn't want to actually do this in real life, right? But and then we need another closing quote, I think. So yep, so it's calculated as 4, and you could do something really crazy. Let's do it more. So yeah, so you can nest them inside of other things. So things like that, as well as like you can use multi-line comments, I said, and other really cool things have been added to F strings. So I wanted to just show those two things real quick, both the better exceptions and also the F string enhancements. And don't forget to add your setup tools as a dependency if you use a setup.py. And go check it out. Go download Python 3.12. That's the end of my quick lightning talk. Next up, we have Evan, and he's going to be talking about live swapping HTML with Python and HTMX. Thanks, Evan.
Yeah, okay. Let me get my screen shared here. All right, HTMX. If anybody wants to raise their hand in the Zoom meeting, if you've heard of HTMX or used it before, please do, because I hadn't heard anything about it. I had no idea what it was at all until this year's PyCon, and I went to one of the open spaces in between the talks, and some guy did a demo on it, and I was totally blown away. I've never done much JavaScript. I hate trying to do JavaScript. And so I also don't really use JavaScript frameworks, and which means I never really got into Ajax or any of that great stuff that does so many cool things. And now I don't have to, it seems, which is fantastic because HTMX seems to do it all for me. You can see right here on the intro, it gives you access to Ajax, CSS transitions, WebSockets, and server sent events directly in HTML using attributes, which is so cool. So, and for me, it basically just means all these great features are dumbed down enough for me to easily use them. And they seem to integrate well with Django too. So I will give you some examples of what I've been doing. And you know, like any good script kiddie, I've ripped a lot of this off of the examples right here on the website, and just conform them to my needs. So we've got this first example is a live preview. It's a PDF preview that I needed for a site that I'm working on. This is obviously dummy data. Oh, I'm a developer for a law firm, by the way. So all these documents are going to be court documents. I'm also a lawyer. These are from one of my old cases, but I needed to use these rather than stuff from my current firm. So the way it's set up is you can click on the account over here on the left, and each time you click, this live preview will update itself. And the awesome thing is there is basically no JavaScript in the HTML. It's fantastic. I'll show you the code here. You've got, well, this is Django, so I am pulling in some template stuff, which is really just it's a single call to the HTMX code from the HTMX site, or actually, you know, best practices, you want to locally host it. So I've done that. But if you look through here, you see there's really no JavaScript. There's a tiny little bit for checking all the boxes on the page. So that was just the easiest way to do that. But for the live preview updating, there is no JavaScript at all. What you've got is just HTMX. And the way the HTMX works, it's embedded into that very first column of the table. And you have these custom HX attributes. One is calling out the target of where the new HTML is going to go, and which is oath preview. And over here, you've got the URL that will be called to get the response that contains the new HTML that you want. And the action is the click action. So by simply clicking here, you are sending a request to your server, and you are getting back HTML, which is simply the embed code. Let me scroll up to that so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so I put the embed code right here in the Python. There are obviously more elegant ways to do this, but this seemed to work for my purposes. So when you hit that, when you do the click in the first column, it's going to the server with a request, and it's coming back with this as a response. And using Django, I'm getting the exact path of the particular PDF that I want to preview with that click. So that's pretty cool. And it's really simple. And you can see, you know, on the, well, yeah, there it is. If you want to look at the live code, you can preview all this, and you can see it change as you click stuff. So that's for troubleshooting and whatnot. That's super handy. The other part of HTMX that I used for this site was, say you're going through these PDFs and you want to reject them for whatever reason. You've got a drop down for what's wrong with this document. Say it's the wrong core to the wrong client or the wrong filing type, and you want to get rid of it. As soon as you pick it from the drop down, watch this. That row just fades into oblivion. And we'll do another one here. So it's the wrong filing type for this document, and that row fades into oblivion. What's actually happening on the back end is it's sending a request to the database. It's matching the ID for that record in the database. It's deleting it from the database, and then it's sending a response that has that row eliminated from the table. And again, it is super simple, and there is no JavaScript that I had to write myself to make it happen. You've got the simple select box right here, and you have the HTMX attributes within that select tag, and it defines what the target is and where the request will be sent. And then when the response comes back, that row is gone. The other thing that I tested out that was pretty cool with HTMX was live search. I'll hop over here. And they made that, this is the easiest implementation of live searching I've ever seen in my life. It's crazy. So we're gonna search for courts in the state of Texas. We'll do Harris County, that's where Houston is. I finished typing and boom, it's got every court that has the word Harris in the court name. We can do it again, we'll do Dallas. And it is already updated and there are all the courts for Dallas. And again, this is just, it's simply sending the search term. Actually, I'll pull up the code again for this part. Let me pause while I go through certain bits of code that I don't want to share. Hold on one second. Okay, so there we go. Can everybody see that? Oh, also, is this code large enough for y'all to see? Maybe. Okay.
Maybe a little on the small side, but looks pretty good.
Okay. So this is just the Django that's taking the search term that's sent in the request object, and it is simply returning a Django query set that has all of the records that include that search term. Super simple. I mean, what is this, about 7 lines? And then it is simply it's building the HTML for the select options of your HTML selector right there on the fly from the query set. So simple Django query set, turn it to select objects, select options built on the fly, and then it's spit out in your form. So super easy to do. And yeah, I think let's see, where's the code for that? Here you go. There's no, oh, actually this one, all of the HTMX is embedded in the form class. So this is the form that we're using here, and you can plug in whatever attributes you want in a Django form. So there's the post call, which I just showed you the code for, where the court search keyword goes in, and then the trigger is key up changed with a delay of 500 milliseconds, and the target is that same select object that we were just working with. So really, really cool, easy implementation of active search that gives you results immediately. Oh, I don't think I showed this, but if you, when you make a selection, you see all these blanks here for address and city and state and all this. When you make a selection, boom, those update on the fly, which is awesome. And what's going on there is it's more HTMX. All I'm doing is swapping out the values of these fields with HTMX. So no JavaScript, and it's awesome. Let me see if I could find the, yeah, there it is. It's actually right here. These rows right here, court, address, city, state, zip, those all get replaced with the results from whatever is selected on your option. So pretty cool. And are we waiting to the end for questions or what?
Yeah, let's wait to the end and get through them all, and then we'll take questions.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks for checking it out. Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay.
Mike, do you want to go next?
Yeah, let's we can give it a shot.
Sounds good.
I wish I didn't have to follow Evans. That was pretty cool. And
Thanks.
something, yeah, brand new. That was really, really neat. Pretty powerful too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing that. A little bit more at the other end of the spectrum. This is probably going to appear very simplistic, but yeah, I'll show a quick project, something that I put together recently about file naming. Pretty boring stuff. I was joking with Dan that this might not be the most riveting talk, but maybe this will appeal to somebody else out there and they might be able to use it. So let's share my screen here. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to use an example with some images of renaming them. I found this to be a use case where I was trying to sort through like 1,000 pictures. And in this case, I'm just showing 10. But the last thing I wanted to do was rename them manually and type them all out. And sometimes, especially if you've, in this use case, it was like images that came from my phone. And sometimes they have these like really weird naming conventions where sometimes they use acronyms, or in this case, I'm just using this like dummy text that says image up here. And then they often have like random numbers or sometimes dates in different formats, but it's just a lot of different alphanumeric characters, and it can be like they don't really mean anything. So I thought, like, one, why not give the file names some more meaning, and then just using Python, see if we can name them all at once. What I'll show you can, I think, apply to any file type. So text, in this case, we'll do images, but if this does maybe appeal to someone, you could think of other use cases using kind of the framework of what I'll describe. So the other thing is I figured out a way to name them in a chronological order. So we'll show how that works. So in this case, we're just looking at these file names. These are actually pictures of my dog. And the chronological thing is going to be nice, right? Because these names don't mean much and they're all over the place. But if I could do it chronological based on the date that the picture was taken, the file names will actually sort them from youngest to oldest. So we'll start with him as a puppy, and then as he gets older, like the file names will increase. So we'll kind of just leave this here. So I figured it's a really short code. This is something I can kind of throw into the Discord too, and you guys could copy paste it, but I'll just kind of type it out with you guys. So we're going to be using the OS module. So I'm going to import that. And then what we'll do is we'll write a function. So I'm just, in this case, we're going to call this the main function. And then I have this code in the directory. And then just to quickly revisit this, I'm in this like kind of this sub. So here's our file name, and then I just created this little subfolder called images. So as we load that back up, we're just going to reference this images. Next, we're going to create a variable here for files, and then we're going to kind of list the directory of everything that's in this folder that we just labeled as images. And then this is where the chronological piece comes into play here. So we'll sort them based off of this get C time. So this is kind of what we'll essentially order them chronologically based on, it's really neat, based on the date they were taken. So that's like some embedded code or embedded text inside the file that like it can reference. Then we're gonna write essentially a loop here. So let's go. This is a for loop, and we're using the enumerate function here. And then the one thing that's there's two things to label here. So you could probably make this a little more neat and pull this variable out. But here is just right in here is where we'll write the text, right? So we kind of know that in this case, we want to maybe start, instead of saying image, number, etc. We'll start the file name with dog, but this could be anything you wanted. And then in this case, I haven't figured out how to do this for multiple file types, but in this case, they're all just JPEGs. So it's going to essentially go into the folder, sort them chronologically. We're going to start each file name with dog, and then we're going to start, I believe, with 0, and then based on the oldest picture, and then it'll go to dog 1, dog 2, dog 3, up through X of X being however many files we have. We'll then just use this little piece of code let's add this in. So we'll rename all of them with os.rename, and then we'll reference these variables. And then last but not least, just to kind of wrap this up, we'll use the dender in it. So let me just do Control-Alt-L just to reformat this. I know my spacing probably got a little off, so quick little reformat. Okay, so we'll run it. So let's, kind of quick look here, right? We have pictures and we have this code. So we'll just hit, and I minimize, let's make this a little smaller here. So this should be good enough. So we'll just hit run. And you'll see in real time, it'll quickly rename all of these. Run. Right? And it actually, but I thought I had to resort. I guess I didn't. It automatically just resorted. So now, right, we start with dog 0, dog 1, dog 2, and not only that, but they're named in a way where he's, kind of like a puppy in these early days, and then he's starting to get a little older. And then, now this is the pup, or this is now he's in like an adult dog. But I think it was just a kind of a nifty little piece of code, pretty simple, much more simple and not really elegant compared to some of the stuff we just saw in the last lightning talk. But kind of nifty way just to, never ever have to manually type in file names again. With 10, obviously it wasn't a big deal, but if you had 100, 1,000, if you had 10,000 files and you just wanted a quick way to kind of rename them, so maybe they're easier to search or easier just to kind of stay organized. It's just a neat little code. So I'll make sure I kind of get that posted on the Discord if anyone wants to copy it for their own uses.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike.
Well, thank you.
I'm Chae DeLaRosa. I'm an undergraduate student at Western Michigan University and for computer science. And I work part-time as a researcher for the Department of Computer and Electrical Engineering. So mainly what I do these days is write code for microcontrollers. And that's a lot of just bit manipulation and binary stuff. So that is what this is about. So it's just going to be like how the basic operators work and maybe some use cases. So the first one here is the and. And right now I have a little example that will tell you if it is odd or even. So what anding is if we go down here. Anding takes two numbers, which I mean, everything's represented as binary under the hood, but typically you use it for numbers. So it checks each bit, and if both of them are set, then it will put a 1 in the output. So if these two numbers right here were ANDed, it would just be the first bit, and all these other bits down here would be cleared. So the reason this works, it'll tell you if a number is odd or even, is because only the most least significant bit is what determines if a number is odd, because it is the 1. So if I write this and then you can see 81's odd, we can do it again because I have it doing a random number. So that is the first one. The next operator is OR. And that is like how it sounds. If one or the other one is set, then they are both set. So pretty easy one. As you can see here, I put the operator here and then kind of like if you're doing math. So yeah, this is the output. If both of them are set, it'll return 1. So it just combines both numbers. I use this to set bits without affecting other bits that might be set in a certain register. So if I'm trying to turn on certain pins in like a general purpose input output register, so typically it's like 32 bits. And, if I just straight up assign a number to it that I want, I could be overriding some bit that's doing something important and mess up my code. So OR is good for when you're trying to set bits, but you don't want to mess up what might already be going on. Okay. So now we have XOR, which is exclusive OR, which is pretty much the same thing, except that it will return a 0 if both of them are set. So it's exclusively if it's one, or if they're opposites, right? So if one is 0 and one is 1. So yeah, I haven't had to use this one much, but it is there. I'm sure there's some important use cases for it, but I haven't come across them quite yet. Now, the next one is not, which is used in if statements a lot to, determine if something is not true. I find myself using it quite a bit. So we can give this example. Okay, so for Python, there's a little bit here. So for Python, they kind of don't natively support unsigned integers. So when you do the not, so right here in the first two lines, I have just the regular number here, which is 129, first and second. And then I not it. And what it does is it makes it negative. And then it looks like it adds one, like a 2's complement. And that's because of the way Python deals with their numbers. So they have a signed bit and it flips the sign as well. And that's why it returns negative. But what you can do to get around that is to mask it with 255, which is just all ones. So 255 is, all ones. So if you and it together, like how we did earlier, it'll say, so all the bits past of what 255 reaches is, they'll just be cleared because of course the number that you're anding it with doesn't have any of those bits set. So it's a way to kind of get around that. Another way is the C types library up here. From C types, import C uint 16-bit. So I tried that out, and as you see, it kind of created a bigger value than I really wanted here. So you can and that and make it smaller. I've also used this before, using the unsigned integer class for writing binary files or reading them, like if you're working on maybe an emulator or something and you need to read a ROM, which is just binary, then this can be very useful. Or if you're writing to a binary file and you don't want to write a bunch of empty bits, that is also useful. Now, shift left is the next one, and that is going to be just taking all the bits and shifting them one position. So as we can see here, it just adds, or it shifts one, and then it adds a bit there as well. So they both get shifted by one. And with Python, from my understanding, I haven't pushed the limits of this, but my understanding is that there's really no limit. So I don't know how far you could shift it and before your computer dies, but apparently you can just keep shifting and make your number bigger and bigger. Oops. Now shift right will make your number smaller. Also, shift left is, of course, it will double your number because of it's a power of 2. So shift right will remove your bit there. So we just lost the odd bit. And I haven't had to use that one too much. Oh, let me just undo. Now, that's pretty much all the operators for binary. So now I'm just going to do a reading and writing. So this bin data variable right here is just a byte string. And we will write it out and see how it looks. So we run it. And then right here is the contents of the file. So as we can see, it's FFEF, FFEF, CA54, CA54. So, yep, so it writes it in hexadecimal, well, not hexadecimal, but XXD will show it to us, the contents in hexadecimal. And then reading it is just the same. You just put a RB instead of WB. and you can read it into a data structure and do whatever you need to do with it. So it's just like reading and writing a file, like a regular file. You just add W or the B to write, and you add the B to read. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for binary.
Cool.
Thanks so much, Chae. That's good. Is anyone else interested in doing a lightning talk before we do questions and answers? All right. Thanks so much, Evan, Mike, and Chae. I thought that was a good, like, diverse range of topics. That was really good. Does anyone have any questions about any of the topics or comments? Anyone?
I have one question. This is Kishore. I
Hey,
just
Kishore.
wanted to see the image renaming demo once again. I just missed the last part. How that script executed.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I posted the code because it's so simple. I dropped it into the Discord
Mhm.
just for everyone to access. So it's in there in the general folder. I think yeah. So the code that's in there, everybody can reference it. Again, it's in the general folder. I just ran it through Python, so I'm sure there are probably some niftier ways to like automate it. But there's just that one for loop that's inside just inside the function. So once it's kind of, if you just take that code, you can just run it and it'll automatically implement.
My doubt is I would put some details here. You used VS Code, right?
I personally am using PyCharm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
that was the
Then my question would be the different, because okay, let me introduce myself. I'm Kishore Kise. I'm a solution architect and having good around 25 years of experience. I do a lot of language programming and all that stuff. The interesting thing for me in Python is I'm trying to get Python installed or Python executed on my local laptop using VS Code, where I would like to connect with Google Cloud on BigQuery and execute some of the stuff. That's what I wanted to achieve. And here I'm struggling because I'm new on VS Code, I'm new on Python, and I'm new on Google Cloud. And that's the piece that I thought somebody would demonstrate or something like that. From that angle, I'm coming.
I think that will require much longer than a lightning talk, probably.
True.
There is I guess talking about Google, one of our previous talks, we did like a fast API app and deployed it to Google Cloud Platform as an app. And it's on YouTube on our channel. And that might be a good one to look at, like, hey, how can you write some type of web app and then deploy it? But yeah, it's maybe the writing the app part becomes the easy part. And like, okay, how do I deploy this thing to the web becomes like the hard part sometimes. So yeah.
Thank you. By the way, it was a nice utility. It is useful.
great.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
one, Mike. That was good. Any other questions, anyone? All right. Thanks so much, Evan, Mike, and Chae for speaking again. That was a lot of fun. So thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this always.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. You're the best. Thanks.